Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Trust Broken channel. Today we're delving into another narrative from the online community. But before we dive in, please remember to subscribe, hit that like button if you appreciate the content, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Your simple interactions truly fuel the future of this platform. Sophia abruptly let out a loud cry, drawing my gaze towards a commotion near the stage. I couldn't grasp her excessive excitement. Her incessant chatter was really starting to fray my nerves. People around us were outlining their resolutions for the approaching year, and I actually began to consider distancing myself from Sophia as a potential objective for the coming 12 months. It had become my personal ritual to reflect on past missteps during the New Year's celebration, especially those I was directly responsible for. A destructive obsession had consumed my existence, mirroring a gambler who squanders every last coin. And so, there we were, Sophia and I, consumed by our own gloom, while everyone else reveled in the passing year. This gathering was actually her brainchild. As others rejoiced, danced, and enjoyed themselves, we remained sidelined, seemingly ignored by all. Instead, whispers and pointed fingers followed us, as if we wouldn't notice their critical stares. This was Willow Creek's major New Year's celebration, and I could recall a time when I would have relished it. I would have been in the thick of it, sporting a goofy hat and clinging to Mark, my beloved, as if he were my sole anchor. Our evenings often concluded in each other's embrace, and both our children, Lena and Alex, were conceived after those New Year's festivities. Lena's conception happened right in our den. We couldn't even make it up the stairs before Mark eagerly removed my dress. Alex arrived 18 months later, near the event venue, when Mark pressed me against a cold wall, in a moment of such intense passion that I still yearn for those times. The memory evoked a sigh from me, which Sophia caught. She began speaking about someone I disliked, but my mounting anger quickly silenced her. I shifted my focus across the room, spotting someone, though my attention wasn't on Sophia. My thoughts drifted back to the first time I encountered Mark at his company's annual holiday gathering. He was 28, a shy new engineer, navigating the social scene rather awkwardly. I was working as a server, with strict instructions not to engage with guests, but I simply couldn't resist him. Despite the clear policy against socializing with clients, Mark was irresistible. By the end of the evening, I discreetly offered him a drink and a small paper napkin where I'd secretly scribbled my name and number. Being oblivious as ever, he didn't notice until later when his boisterous excitement drew the attention of everyone present. I maintained my composure, continuing with my tasks, but even my supervisor couldn't help but smile, amused by his genuine enthusiasm. Within a week, we were a couple. A month later, our relationship was official, and within a year, we were married. Every moment I spent with him felt perfect. I often told people Mark was truly meant for me. He was a dedicated husband and a caring father. I was certain we'd always be together. Our shared life was blissful. We purchased our ideal home in a wonderful neighborhood surrounded by fantastic neighbors. It was the perfect environment for our children to grow up in, and as time progressed, my affection for Mark only deepened. Life's unexpected turns often arrive out of nowhere, whether it's hardship, betrayal, heartache, or even newfound affection. I truly believe I'm experiencing love. All the indicators are there. The dizzying sensation when our eyes meet, the absolute certainty that she's the most extraordinary person in the world, and the overwhelming desire to shield her from anyone who might come between us. Above all, I'm convinced she reciprocates these feelings and would never cause me pain. As I prepare for a significant step, I find myself hesitating. A few close friends understand the gravity of this moment, but no one knows my precise intentions. I question whether this action will genuinely improve things. People often say it strengthens bonds and eliminates doubts, but I'm not unsure about my emotions. I understand what love is. Looking across the room at Diana and her friend Sophia, a wave of bitterness washes over me. Diana showed me how to love, but dwelling on the specifics of our past feels unnecessary. We had been married for 15 years until circumstances shifted 6 months prior. Just before the winter holidays, Diana contracted a severe flu. As a devoted husband, I stayed home to care for her. By then, our children had left home. Lena was married and living in a distant city, while Alex was away at university. Diana, who worked part-time at the medical center, likely picked up the virus there. During her illness, she lost her appetite and mostly wanted me by her side, holding her hand. One morning, while rushing to the grocery store for fresh produce, I unexpectedly ran into Chloe Adams. I hadn't seen her or her husband, David, in months. Chloe, a petite, delicate-looking woman, had never truly caught my eye before, but that morning I couldn't help but notice how attractive she was. She looked incredibly fit for a woman nearing 40, with toned legs and a flat stomach. Her athletic pants accentuated her shapely calves. In contrast, Diana was a larger woman whom men often admired, but at that moment I found myself stealing glances at Chloe. Brenda Green, standing behind me, mentioned that since Chloe and David had divorced, she rarely spoke to anyone. I wasn't aware of their separation and wondered why, especially in a small town where secrets are rare. The divorce made me reflect on relationships and imagine how it must feel for her. Our town, though close-knit, had its wild side. There was a particular group who subtly hinted at joining their gatherings if you were interested. Even those outside the circle would attend their parties as long as they stayed out of the bedrooms. It was exclusively for couples, and participation was consensual, sometimes even involving married individuals with their spouse's consent. Diana and I had been heavily courted, hearing all the usual lines about how such arrangements could invigorate a marriage or help rekindle passion by separating the act from emotion. However, the frequent use of "sometimes" in their explanations always left me feeling uneasy. It simply didn't appeal to me. I had dismissed all those suggestions and refused to take any of them seriously. Eventually, they understood we weren't interested. Chloe and David were another couple who opted out. I often joked with Diana that she could have ruined that particular group. "Sweetheart, if they ever saw your figure, all those men would be vying for your attention," I'd tell her. "They'd have to disband the club." "Mark, you're being ridiculous. No one desires this physique but you." I was so engrossed in my thoughts that I wasn't paying attention to where I was going. Naturally, I bumped right into the person I was thinking about. "My apologies, Chloe," I said, pulling our shopping carts apart. "It's all right, Mark," she replied. "I understand what you're experiencing. I, too, felt lost when I first found out. It might not seem like it now, but things do get better. You just need to allow yourself time to realize you did nothing wrong. Hang in there. If you need someone who understands to talk to, call me." She walked away, leaving me bewildered by her words. "Unbelievable," muttered the ever-curious Brenda. "In nearly a year, I've never seen that woman speak to anyone. What did you say to her?" "I said nothing. She did all the talking."
Brenda, do you have any idea why she and David separated? Not a clue, Brenda said. They kept everything under wraps. They even consulted an out-of-town divorce attorney. She kept the residence, but I suppose that's typically how these things unfold. If you hear anything, let me know, okay? The conversation with Chloe lingered in my mind. It made no sense. She was so lovely and kind. I couldn't comprehend why any man would divorce her. When I returned home, Diana was still asleep, so I sat beside her, but my thoughts kept returning to Chloe. As I pondered the strange conversation, Diana awoke, and we exchanged some light-hearted words. I offered her more soup, and as her complexion improved, I felt better too. But something about my encounter with Chloe kept nagging at me. I mentioned running into Chloe, and Diana immediately tensed. Her grip tightened on my hand, and I could tell she was pretending to be asleep. I asked if she knew Chloe and David had divorced, and her body grew even more rigid. It was evident Diana knew something, but I couldn't figure out what. My gut told me this might be one of those subtle conflicts between women, possibly linked to Sophia, whom I didn't care for. Sophia was a troublemaker, and I disliked Diana being friends with her, but I knew it wasn't my place to choose her companions. I expected Diana to tell me that Chloe disliked Sophia, but instead her face tightened and she avoided saying much. When she finally spoke, she warned me to steer clear of Chloe, mentioning she'd heard unsavory things and thought Chloe might have lost her mind. A few days later, with Diana feeling better after the flu, I returned to work. During lunch, I planned to grab a sandwich, but ended up seeing a woman jogging by with long, tanned legs and a trim figure. It turned out to be Chloe. "How are you coping?" she inquired. "Chloe, I don't understand what I'm supposed to be coping with," I replied. "Didn't you also get a divorce?" she asked. "Why would I?" asked, confused. "Never mind," she said. "I've already said too much. Sorry, Mark. You're a genuinely good person. You deserve better." Then she just ran off, leaving me perplexed. For the remainder of the day, I couldn't focus, and when I arrived home, I found myself observing Diana more closely. To clear my head, I went to the workshop to work on my 1972 Mustang Fastback restoration project. I was modernizing the car's design while preserving its classic feel, upgrading the engine, drivetrain, and completely overhauling the interior. At that moment, I was still dismantling the car. Normally, I might have invited a couple of friends over to hang out, but I truly needed to think. About half an hour into my work, I heard the phone ring. It rang several times before Diana answered it. I never even considered answering. If the landline rang, it was usually for her. Those who wished to reach me called my mobile. It was probably Sophia. She called Diana at least twice daily. I picked up the extension and confirmed it was Sophia. The two of them were engaged in a heated argument. "How dare he run into her?" Sophia demanded. "I have no idea," Diana replied. "But according to the divorce agreement, she's not supposed to discuss it with anyone." "What are you planning to do?" Sophia pressed. "I'm calling David and telling him to control his ex. That wretched woman already got us expelled from the club and ruined her own marriage. Now she wants to interfere with mine, too? So, have you considered my proposition? Come on, this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance." "I honestly can't manage it," Diana said. "And frankly, I'm not sure I even want to." "You know you're considering it," Sophia chuckled. "Speak to you later." As they both hung up, a surge of fury unlike anything I'd ever felt consumed me. I hurled a wrench across the workshop. Fortunately, the workshop walls were made of sturdy blocks.
The wrench rebounded and knocked several car care products off a nearby shelf. "Mark, darling, are you all right?" Diana called from somewhere inside the house. "Better than ever," I responded, and I meant it. "Honey, I'm struggling to loosen some of these parts," I shouted. "I'm heading out to buy an Easy Out." I knew she had no idea what an Easy Out was truly for, or that I already owned several. "Isn't it rather late?" she inquired. "Perhaps you should wait until tomorrow." "Car Parts Emporium is open until 9, I stated. I grabbed my keys and headed for the driveway. I got into my daily driver, a 2012 Mustang GT. That car was fully paid off, and I adored it. I had started the 72 as a hobby project. I decided to visit my neighbors, Paul and Brenda Green, who lived behind us and frequently used our pool. When Brenda answered the door, she seemed a little too casual, her robe opening slightly more than usual. I asked her to summon Paul, sensing this conversation was meant for both of them. After exchanging pleasantries, I got straight to the point. I explained that I had overheard a conversation between Diana and her friend, which led me to believe Diana might have been involved in their swinging group. Brenda glanced at Paul and admitted she had anticipated this coming out eventually. She explained they were not to blame, as they had rules in place to prevent such issues. According to her, Diana had approached them claiming our marriage needed a spark, and they had been misled into believing we were both on board with the idea. Brenda even mentioned she had been excited at the prospect of me joining them. Brenda clarified that Diana had approached them stating she wanted to join their group with a different partner and that I was fully supportive. She asserted that our marriage had intimacy problems and that her participation would be temporary while I underwent treatment. They had witnessed similar situations before and believed it could help, with their rules forbidding any emotional attachments. They handed Diana a form for me to sign and asked her to have me call them, but she claimed I was too embarrassed. Brenda believed her due to our long-standing friendship. Diana first appeared with David Adams, whose wife Chloe had always avoided them. Chloe seemed uncomfortable with their lifestyle, and Brenda assumed she was repressed. The partnership between Diana and David seemed logical, as both allegedly had their spouse's consent. Almost a year later, however, Brenda received a call from an attorney threatening to expose their group. Chloe had not given David permission and was divorcing him for infidelity. Diana was also named in the lawsuit for contributing to the dissolution of their marriage. The club banned both Diana and David, but the matter was resolved quietly. Chloe won the house, the car, spousal support, half of their savings, and a portion of David's pension, with spousal support continuing until she remarried or David retired. David also had to pay the mortgage. Brenda noted that they kept everything quiet to avoid harming innocent family members, which is why she and Paul remained friendly with me but distanced themselves from Diana. Brenda then informed me that recently, Diana and Sophia had been hosting parties with various single men. While it was mostly Sophia, Diana had participated occasionally. I thanked her for telling me, though I was seething inside, angrier than ever. I knew what I had to do next. I called Tom Adams, a colleague and David's brother, under the pretense of inquiring about Alex's school issues. During our conversation, Tom mentioned that David was residing in a condo because, in his divorce, Chloe had received the residence and spousal support. Tom speculated that Chloe might have set David up, possibly being gay, which further devastated David. Armed with David's new address, I made my way to a modest condo complex where most residents were either students or recent arrivals.
Despite my anger, I hurried up the stairs to David's third-floor condo, still fueled by the intensity of my emotions. I knocked on David's door, which he opened slightly, the security chain still fastened. He recognized me, but his guarded reaction only intensified my anger. After a tense back and forth, I made it clear that if he didn't open the door, I would involve the police, and the consequences for his career as a high school principal would be severe once the truth about his affair with my wife came out. Reluctantly, he opened the door, pleading with me to remain silent to protect his job. Inside his small condo, he attempted to apologize, shifting the blame to Diana, claiming my marriage wasn't ruined and that, in time, I would forget about it. His own suffering, he asserted, was proof he was paying for his actions, but his words only enraged me further. I snapped. My first punch sent his head snapping back, and before he could react, I landed a second, knocking him out of his chair. I repeatedly kicked him, his face, stomach, back, legs, and groin, until he was unconscious and no longer resisting. I brewed a cup of coffee and waited for David to regain consciousness, checking that he was still breathing. One of my kicks had knocked him out cold. When he finally came to, I leaned over him, making it clear he was not to tell anyone what had happened. He nodded weakly in agreement. I explained that Diana would call him soon, but he was not to mention that I knew about their affair. Diana had no idea I was aware of everything. I had overheard one of her phone calls to Sophia about being expelled from the local swinging club, and after speaking with Brenda and Paul, I had the full story. I warned David that if he valued his career, he would remain silent about everything. He agreed. Before I left, I asked David about Chloe. Despite being younger, prettier, and slimmer than Diana, David described Chloe as boring, emotionally needy, and uninterested in sexual experimentation. He regretted marrying her, resenting the contrast between her and Diana, who was more adventurous. I went home and headed straight to the workshop, where Diana soon joined me, wearing only a robe. My mind raced with thoughts, suspecting Diana was also receiving some kind of settlement from Chloe. About 6 months prior, just before Alex graduated and left for college, Diana had taken a part-time job because both children were out of the house, and I used to joke about how little money she made. But now I realized that most of her earnings were likely going to Chloe as part of the lawsuit settlement. That night, when Diana asked me to come to bed, I normally would have jumped at the chance, but I remained distant, telling her I'd be in soon, while my mind churned over how blind I had been to her actions. The next morning, I left the house as if heading to work, but instead went to purchase some electronics. I visited Paul and Brenda again to obtain Chloe's divorce attorney's name and arranged a meeting. At lunchtime, I returned home telling Diana I missed her. After exchanging kisses that made me feel ill, I had her make me lunch while I discreetly installed a recording device on the phone and placed small cameras around the house. Later, I met with the attorney, who confirmed she could handle my case and offered a discount since much of the legal groundwork was already in place. She also assured me that Chloe's divorce records, including Diana's involvement, were part of the public record, meaning I could prove infidelity without much effort. The attorney cautioned me not to do anything reckless. She had noticed my scraped knuckles and the look of despair on my face, suspecting I might lash out. She explained that acting out violently wouldn't resolve anything and could land me in jail, especially since what was taken from me was given willingly.
She compared my situation to Chloe's, noting how her husband's betrayal had shattered her, transforming a once sweet and timid woman into someone who withdrew from everyone. Over the next few days, I monitored the phone recordings. On November 15th, I finally heard something useful. Sophia was pressuring Diana to attend a party, saying, "Diana, you must find a way to come. This will be special. I've got Mike, Sam, Leo, and Chris coming. I even convinced Jane to drop by, but she can't stay long. She'll be at Brenda's party with her partner. Can you believe he's sneaking out of a swapper's bash to join our little gathering? Mike is supposedly bringing a few of his colleagues. It would be so much better if you were there." "Sophia, unlike you, I have a partner at home. I have no idea what we're doing for the New Year's celebration," Diana stated. "He asked me yesterday if I wanted to go to Paul and Brenda's party. That would be a catastrophe. Half the people in their little group still despise me. One of them would probably start flapping their lips, and I could lose Mark." The later the evening progressed, the greater the chances that one of them would get intoxicated and start talking. "Damn it, we probably won't do anything. We'll likely just stay home like an old couple and watch TV." This conversation sparked an idea. The following day, pretending to go to work again, I began implementing my plan, knowing exactly who Sophia had mentioned and what I needed to do. I followed Mike, a construction worker and divorced Little League coach, as he left his condo. Catching him by surprise as he was about to enter his truck, I struck him hard, expecting a fight but receiving none. He panicked, thinking it was a robbery, offering me his money. When he realized it was me, he started complaining about his possibly broken jaw, confused about why I attacked him. I demanded to know how many times, and he assumed I was referring to baseball, defending his decision not to let my son play. I silenced him with a slap and clarified that I was asking about Diana. He instantly turned pale, grasping the true reason behind the confrontation. "Mark, I am truly sorry, man. After my divorce, I felt so lonely and desperate. That's why I went to see Sophia. I only did it discreetly. Sophia's the biggest flirt in town. No one wants anyone to know they've slept with her, but half the men around here have. Diana has been with her once or twice, but she's not like Sophia. She just sought some variety. She doesn't let a guy kiss her, won't perform oral sex, and doesn't engage in anal sex either. I didn't mean to hurt you, Mark, but it was just a physical act. Come on, name one guy who wouldn't hook up with another dude's partner if he thought no one would find out. Me, I replied. Mike, you have two choices. First, I could name you in my divorce, drag your reputation through the mud, and you'd lose your job coaching the Little League team, along with any respect you have in this town. Isn't your boss the mayor's brother? That won't look good for you, will it? His eyes widened in fear at my suggestion. Or you can do exactly as I say. Keep telling Sophia and Diana that you'll be at their little party and that you'll go along with whatever they want. You give me all the details about when and where it will be, and then on the day of the event, you stay completely clear of any trouble I'm about to cause there. After that, I'll forget everything I know about you, and we'll start fresh. But if you warn Sophia, Diana, or anyone else attending this little rendezvous, all bets are off. I'll choose option 2, he said. I'll call you as soon as I have more details from them. Mark, can I go to work? I'm already going to be late. I walked away from Mike, leaving him in shock. Later that afternoon, I confronted Sam as he was leaving work. My first punch didn't bring him down, and he managed to hit me back, which only intensified my anger.
Grabbing his arm, I slammed him to the ground and kicked him hard in the ribs, hearing a snap. Struggling to breathe, Sam tried to reason with me, acknowledging that this must be about Diana. Sam admitted there was no justification for what he did, claiming it was just a physical act and that Diana meant nothing to him. He explained that after his heart attack, he had acted on impulse, feeling vulnerable. For him, it was a thoughtless fling, no different from being with Sophia. He assured me he'd leave town and swore he'd never touch another married woman, but his words felt hollow. But why leave town? I asked. You were born here. Because every time I see you or Diana from now on, it'll feel awkward or uncomfortable. My presence here would put a serious strain on your marriage, he explained. I was taken aback. Sam was the only person so far who had shown any concern for the marriage he had helped to ruin. Sam, I need you to do something, I said, but it doesn't involve leaving town. You don't need to worry about Diana and me. We're done. What do you mean you're done? He asked, confused. I'm planning to divorce her, I stated. He looked stunned. But why? He pressed. He seemed almost as upset as I was. Mark, she loves you. It was just a physical act, for crying out loud. She doesn't even let anyone kiss her. You have children together. You can't be serious. Is this about your ego? You don't want her anymore just because some other man slept with her? This will destroy her. I don't want to feel even partially responsible for breaking up a family. Sam, it's not about ego. It's about trust and love, I replied. I'll never be able to trust her again. I do love her. This has shattered my heart, and I don't know how I'll move on, but I just can't see myself with her anymore. Maybe there's a bit of ego involved. Part of being human is having a little self-confidence and belief in ourselves, and that pride won't let me live with someone who could hurt me like this. He just nodded and sat there with his head in his hands. Damn it, Sam, if you want her that badly, you can have her. I'm out of the picture. He suddenly looked up at me as if I was crazy. Why would I want a woman who cheats? He asked. We both suddenly burst out laughing. After giving Sam instructions on what I expected, we went our separate ways. My final visit would be the hardest, and it took me to a house just a few blocks from mine. I had passed it often, but it had changed. The warmth and love of a home were gone, leaving behind just a house, a hollow shell holding memories. I knocked, still uncertain if I should stay, and after a pause, the door opened. We stood in awkward silence before she invited me in. What followed was a raw conversation, the kind only two people betrayed by those they loved can truly understand. We spoke of the emptiness that never fades, the loss of trust, and the need to do something, anything, to reclaim our sense of self. As I articulated the pain of feeling irreparably broken, something shifted in her. A faint smile slowly emerged, illuminating her face and reminding me just how beautiful she was beneath the weight of her sorrow. Chloe, I said, you've had your revenge on David. You drove him out of his home and he's still suffering the consequences. You took most of his money and now he's living in a sad little condo downtown. But how would you like to get back at Diana? I would love that, but the terms of my divorce and my civil suit against her prevent me from discussing her role in destroying my marriage. No offense, but I truly despise that woman." I explained my plan and her potential involvement, and she chuckled. "That sounds amazing. But how do you know she's actually going to show up? She's really cautious when it comes to her marriage." On the way home, I brainstormed how to get Diana to attend Sophia's party.
She had been adamant that we would likely spend the New Year's celebration together, but I realized I could feign illness to give her an excuse to go without me and avoid intimacy with her. As soon as I arrived home, I went straight to bed, pretending to be asleep when Diana found me. Using a hand warmer to create a fever, I convinced her I had caught the flu. The next day, I made a show of calling in sick, all the while secretly recording her phone calls through an app on my phone. I captured a call between Diana and Sam where he described his plans in bed for her, which would be useful in the divorce. Diana set limits on what she would allow, but agreed to let him sleep with her. By lunchtime, I knew it was game on. Diana handed me flu pills, the same ones that had knocked her out for hours, likely planning to give them to me the following night. I pretended to take the pills while Diana watched, monitoring how long it took for me to fall asleep. Once I appeared to be out, she called Sophia, confirming she'd attend the party, though she insisted it would be her last time. Sophia, however, doubted Diana would ever quit. On the New Year's celebration, as Mark lay sick in bed, I was consumed with guilt over what I was about to do. Just days prior, he had cared for me while I was ill, even taking time off work to look after me. His kindness had almost exposed my secrets when he ran into Chloe. If she had said anything, I could have lost him. I had already resolved that this would be the last time I cheated on him. Watching him now, I questioned why I ever started. I convinced myself that variety had invigorated our marriage, but after each affair, I became desperate for intimacy with Mark, likely driven by guilt. It felt like the more I gave him, the less guilty I should feel. In my mind, the more I slept with Mark, the less my cheating mattered. But no matter how many times I made love to him, I could never erase my infidelity. Even if the ratio was overwhelmingly in Mark's favor, I could never be 100% faithful again. The saying, "once a cheater, always a cheater," weighed heavily on me. Looking at Mark, I felt the urge to cry. He had never cheated on me, and from the moment we met, he treated me like a princess, loving me unconditionally, even as I gained weight over the years. His devotion never wavered, and I knew I didn't deserve it. Around 18 months prior, Mark and I were having breakfast after watching part of the Victoria's Secret fashion show the previous night. Halfway through, Mark became unusually aggressive, rubbing himself against my leg. I wasn't in the mood, feeling bloated and self-conscious watching those unnaturally thin models on stage. Their exaggerated figures and ridiculous wings made me feel like an elephant in comparison. Despite my discomfort, Mark was relentless, clearly aroused by what he saw. He forced my legs apart, and once he did, my resistance melted away. In the end, I enjoyed it, even though the whole situation had started out awkwardly. But that next morning, I needed to know. "So, Mark, was last night truly that good for you?" I asked. "Which one of those sluts were you imagining I was?" I was on the verge of tears. He looked at me and started laughing. "You're joking, right?" he asked. "What's so amusing?" I whined. "I know I'm getting older and heavier. You can't bounce a coin off my cleavage anymore, and my top is starting to sag. My legs are thicker and—" "Diana, stop talking before I start laughing too hard," he said. "While we were watching TV last night, the only thing I could think about was how fortunate I am. Your curves are enormous compared to those women. Most men will always prefer a bigger chest whenever they can. Yours are even larger than when we got married. It's like an investment. The more they expand, the happier you become each year. And you know I adore your breasts. I can barely keep my hands off them. They're big and soft, and I just love squeezing."
Honey, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you've never been able to bounce a coin off your chest. No one can do that. They proved it on one of those man shows on Spike TV. So what got you all excited last night? I asked, wiping my tears. It was seeing those skinny girls on TV that made me realize I had a full-figured, real woman next to me, he said. And she was mine, and I could do anything I wanted with her. It drove me wild. I'm sorry, I said. I snatched the bacon from his hand. You should be, I snapped. What you did was just wrong. I thought you were enjoying it once we started, he said, looking sad. I was, I replied sharply. Then why should I be sorry? He asked. Because you stopped, I exclaimed, grabbing his arm and pulling him back to our bedroom. As I reflected on my past actions, I couldn't help but question why I was cheating. My life with Mark was practically perfect, and I was a fool for risking it. Despite knowing this, I realized I would still go through with it, and even if I stopped for a while, I'd likely cheat again. It wasn't the physical act itself that drove me. Mark gave me more satisfaction than anyone ever had. I loved him deeply, more than I could express. He had fathered our children, and I cherished him. The thrill of cheating came from doing something forbidden, something wrong. It wasn't about the physical act. It was about the danger, the excitement of crossing a line I shouldn't. It felt like a gambler risking everything on one spin of the wheel. I knew I was being reckless, yet I couldn't resist. I spent the day holding Mark's hand while he slept, feeling overwhelmed by how much I loved him. He gave me his love so freely, and I knew I could give up anything for him. As the evening approached, I made him his favorite soup and woke him up, hoping we could talk like we had when he cared for me while I was sick. For the first time, guilt gnawed at me in a way it never had before. I had cheated for years, but this felt different. I realized in the past my infidelities were spontaneous, impulsive decisions. Whether with David or others, it was never planned, it just happened, which somehow made it easier to justify. But this time, with everything premeditated, the weight of what I was about to do felt heavier than ever. This time, everything was planned. I knew I was heading off to sleep with multiple men while my partner lay ill in our bed. Worries crept in. What if there was a fire? What if he had a bad reaction to the pills? But despite the guilt and the risks, I couldn't stop myself. I was already too far gone. Mark was struggling to eat his soup, looking weak and barely able to stay awake. He apologized for ruining my New Year's celebration, and in that moment I almost broke down. I sat beside him and turned on the television, ready to abandon my plans. But then the phone rang, and it was Sophia urging me to come join the others at the inn. They were all waiting. Mark was soon snoring, and just to be sure, I gave him more pills and water, ensuring he would sleep until morning. I convinced myself I could go for an hour and be back before 9. I didn't bother changing or freshening up, feeling that no one but Mark deserved any special effort from me. When I arrived at the inn, I felt exposed standing outside the door, hoping no one saw me. Parking my car out front in such a questionable neighborhood was risky, but there was no other option. The thought crossed my mind, who would believe a call girl could be assaulted? If I were ever questioned, the number of DNA samples they'd find on me would be enough to dismiss any claim. Chloe appeared, bringing me a card, flowers, and magazines. While Mark stepped out, she confronted me, making it clear that my attempts to rekindle our relationship wouldn't work. She knew everything, even my shellfish allergy, and told me Mark had moved on.
He wasn't the type to cheat, and my attempts to win him back would only make him appreciate her more. Her words stung, but the real blow came when Mark returned. Chloe kissed him, and it wasn't just a casual peck. He melted into it, their bodies fitting together naturally. Watching them, I realized it was over. Mark had truly moved on, and their love was different from ours. For them, love wasn't just about being together. It was an all-consuming devotion. They couldn't even imagine being with anyone else, physically or emotionally. Watching them, I finally understood that closeness and love were inseparable for them, something deeper than I had ever grasped. David and I had no chance of getting back with them. Neither Chloe nor Mark would ever forgive a betrayal like ours. Even if something happened to her, I knew I still wouldn't have a shot with Mark. After leaving the medical center, I tried to move on with my life, but in such a small town I constantly ran into them. Their sweetness toward each other was sickening. Chloe had moved into my old house with Mark and even gave David his house back. She didn't sell it or take the money, she just gave it to him and reduced his spousal support, claiming he had paid enough. Meanwhile, Sophia and I became outcasts. While it bothered me, Sophia didn't care. She always found a way to land on her back, literally. That's where she thrived. In jail, it became clear just how comfortable Sophia was in her skin. Within days, no one bothered us, and we lived well while others struggled. Prison, for me, became a place to reflect on my mistakes. Sophia, however, used her attraction to manipulate the system. She slept with male guards, therapists, career counselors, female guards, and even some prisoners. It confirmed what I had suspected all along. Sophia was willing to do anything for a favor, and would even offer you a favor to get started. When we were released, things took a darker turn. She hung a poster of a donkey in our condo, staring at it with the same distant gaze Mark once had for classic cars. Sophia had grown restless, thinking we needed to relocate since there weren't enough men left in town willing to sleep with her. Now I find myself at another boring party, watching the nightmare of my life unfold before me, knowing there's no escape from the mess I've created. Just before midnight, with the new year full of possibilities for everyone but me, Mark does the unthinkable. He gets down on one knee, and the room holds its breath. Time seems to stop as everyone watches him propose. For a brief moment, Chloe's eyes meet mine across the room, and I give her a small nod. Then, in her tiny voice, she accepts. They kiss, and the entire room exhales in unison as the clock strikes midnight and joy fills the space. I can't stay here any longer. I mutter to myself about leaving, but when I look around, I spot Sophia's feet sticking out from under a nearby table, the man at that table fidgeting nervously. David suddenly appears and asks me to dance, but I tell him bluntly that I'd rather skip the pretense. He agrees. No strings, no romance, no emotions, no relationships. Sophia pops up at the mention of intimacy, suggesting a threesome. She points out Mark and Chloe, still lost in their kiss, unaware of the world around them. Chloe is only 35, and I wonder how she'll handle motherhood. David agrees half-heartedly, his eyes glued to them, and I echo his sentiment, though my heart aches. All I can think about is how much I wish I were in her place.